So part of hockey that you have are some of those funny, entertaining moments. And sometimes they're with the coach. Certain things happen. You know, we won the Turner Cup in the minors one year, and we went to throw the water on the Gatorade cooler on our coach. Bobby Plager was our head coach. Wayne Thomas, our assistant coach. The handle broke off. Cooler hit him across the forehead, laced him open for stitches. He laid there. We just won the cup, and we're cheering and dancing around. This poor bastard's bleeding all over the floor. Coach one time walked in, Don Clark, Wendell's older brother, kicked a garbage can. He kicked the garbage can so hard, he actually stuck his foot through it and was caught in it after he had ripped all of us. Who's going to help him out of that? We left him there. They actually locked Mike Keenan in the Blues locker room, or in the visiting locker room in the old St. Louis arena in a playoff game, and literally locked him in. We couldn't start the game, and when they found out that they locked him in and Dave Manson had snapped the key, they had to use a forklift to drill the door, smack the door a few times and knock it through so Keenan could come out and coach in the playoffs. There's funny things that happen in sports all the time. And there's a couple of baseball stories that I think are fantastic. One of them that I heard we were talking about the other day, Rick Sutcliffe was pitching for the Cubs. And you never really know what's going on when you see it on TV. He's pitching for the Cubs, and he's winning 7-1 in the ninth. He gets the first out, the second out. He's going to pitch a complete game. Throws a pitch, boom, home run. Fireworks go off. Boom, boom, boom. Next pitch. Strike, boom. Another home run. Fireworks, boom, 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 boom. 7-3. Eric Davis comes to the plate. First pitch, over the fence, fireworks, boom, boom, boom. Don Zimmer comes up out of the dugout, and Sutcliffe's, if you've ever met him, 6'7.5". He's about 275 pounds, and Don Zimmer's coming waddling out of the dugout. And Sutcliffe's yelling at him, "Get back in there, you fat little bugger. I'm fine. Leave me in here. Get out. Get your ass back in that dugout." And he just keeps waddling out to the mound, and Blashill's playing third, Dunston short, Sandberg second, Grace first base, and Rick Lake's catching. And he gets to the mound, and Sut goes, "What are you doing coming out here and embarrassing me? I got this." He goes, "Sut," he said, "I'm not taking you out of the game. I'm just trying to give that poor bastard loading up fireworks a chance to catch his breath." You never really know, right? Mark Grace is playing first base for the Chicago Cubs, and he stretches out to catch an infield grounder that was hit at him, and he has a little accident. He's wearing a white uniform. He craps his pants. Now, you can't make this up, right? He's got another 2 out to go, and he's at first base, and he's like, "Oh, my God, this is just embarrassing." And apparently it's quite a mess. So he gets through it, and he runs in. I'm just going to say it. I mean, I know this is on video, and y'all getting it, but that's it. So he comes running in, and I think it's Brenneman's managing. And he comes running, he goes, "You got to delay a little bit. I just shit my pants." I'm like, "What? This is Major League Baseball." So they're trying to delay things a little bit. And 1 out. Glenn Allen Hill doesn't listen. First pitch. He goes out. "Gracie, you're up." He's in the shower. "Yosh, give me a uniform." Puts on his sliding pants. Brenneman's delaying. The ump comes over and goes, "Where's your first baseman?" He goes right up to the umpire. He goes, "Nose to nose." Now, you're not going to believe this, but I'm telling you what happened. My first baseman actually shit his pants at first base. Now, I need you to argue with me for a minute here and make it look like there's something going on. And the crowd now is roaring, right? It's the biggest ovation. They think he's complaining about some call they had. Next thing you know, the crowd's roaring. He goes, "Are you kidding me?" The umpire says, "I'm not kidding you. My first baseman has actually shit his pants. Now, I want you to stand here until this idiot gets back out on the field. All right? You keep arguing with me." Darren Dalton's catching. He's like, "Are you kidding me? This is going on." Grace comes out of the dugout. Oh, pardon me, left-handed. Swings, takes a few swings. He gets to the plate, steps in. Dalton calls timeout and bursts out laughing and goes, "You shit your pants." So sometimes when you're watching a game, don't be so surprised that the coaches are always yelling at the referees. Someone could have just shit their pants in a game. You just never know. All right, well, the next guy to coach, I don't think he's ever done that. He was telling me, though, when he arrived last night, he came in for a beer, and he was sitting down at the lobby bar having a beer, and he noticed these two ladies were sitting down there, a little bit huskier young ladies, and they were speaking with an accent. And he said, are you two ladies from Ireland? And the one turned and said, "It's Wales, you idiot." So Blash said, "Well, are you two Wales from Ireland?" And apparently got himself in some trouble. Anyways, his second season as the coach of the Detroit Red Wings. He's been with the Red Wings organization for 6 seasons. He's won the Calder Cup and the Minor League American League Championship. Coach of the Year. Has coached at 3 of the colleges, Ferris, Miami, and Western Michigan. And won the Clark Cup in the USHL. Great friends with a guy I hired, John Cooper, who has said nothing but good things about him prior to his stint in the National Hockey League. And it's proved to be true. Class guy, quality guy, and he's coached for Team USA 3 times, Jeff Blashill.
That's a hard thing to follow up. I appreciate it. I appreciate, Kelly, the introduction. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak here with USA Hockey. Before I go any further, I just want to give a shout out to the U18 team at the Ivan Alenka who beat Russia in overtime today here to go to the finals of the Ivan Alenka. So a good shout out to Clark Donatelli and his team. That's an incredible achievement. I've been on that staff. I've coached one of those teams with Eddie Olchuk, and I can tell you it's an unbelievable tournament. Probably doesn't always get enough publicity, and so a great achievement by that group. So I think that's awesome. I wanted to be able to speak here. I always enjoy these opportunities, and today it was real important for me for 2 reasons. One, I think the chance to share ideas with each other is the best way to learn. I know I've been able to be in different settings, and even here today where I had the opportunity to listen to some different ideas. And I think part of that, though, and a real important part of that, is to make sure that in the sharing of ideas, it's never a copy and paste mentality when you're in the attendance. So as you listen to things that I say, I think a big mistake people make at times is to try to just copy and paste that into their own environment rather than take that idea and make it your own. Wherever you coach and whoever you are, you're different than me and you're coaching a different environment than me. And I think it can be real powerful to share ideas like this if you do it with that mentality. The other reason that I thought it was real important to get out here, and this summer I've been trying to get my face out with my name as much as possible to try to avoid opportunities in situations like this.
The biggest missed assignment of all, unfortunately, goes to our guy, Pierre Maguire, who goes to Pat Ferschweiler, and then realizes he needs the other ball guy, and he goes over to Chef Blashill and finally gets it right. So, hey, Pierre, no excuses, Pierre.
So it was an interesting, just keep that video ready to roll. It was an interesting thing to get my face out there as much as possible. The one thing you learn in the NHL is you have a microphone in front of your face all the time. And so you got to be real careful in live TV situations about what you say and what you do. It's real imperative that you really watch what you say. Sometimes I stumbled upon this summer, this next clip, but I thought it was a good reminder of being careful about not only what you say, but what you ask.
We're here at the line where people are doing it the old-fashioned way. They're just filling out bubbles here. I want to turn some of these people around and ask you guys, sir, can I ask you what your lucky numbers are?
I'm going to pick 14, 24, 2, 7, and 15.
Oh, those are your lucky numbers. Can I tell you do you know your chances of winning?
Slim to none.
Slim to none, you're right. Let me tell you, it's 1 out of 292 million. What do you think about that?
I knew it.
You knew it. Your numbers are lucky, though. Am I right?
I hope so.
Can I ask you, if you won all the money, what would you do with it?
Bunch of hookers and cocaine.
Oh, okay. Good. We were hoping for a different answer. That's probably not the answer that we're looking for.
I did not get that cleared through tapes. I just want everybody to know that. I'm a believer in asking for forgiveness rather than permission. So this is honest to God, I did just send that clip to John Cooper. Said, Coop, what do you think? Should I play it? He said, absolutely. So anyways, I'm here today to speak about individual development to lead to team success. And it's something that, as I talked to Taves earlier, I wanted to talk to something that could hit the whole room and that I was also passionate about. And I believe individual development for team success will be critically important for the 2016-17 Red Wings. I think it's something that's going to be real important. I'll talk about that as we move along. When I was here, not here, but when I was at the level 5 2 years ago, I talked about this book, The Power of Habit. And I had just finished reading the book, and it was a great reinforcement for me for what I believe in as a coach. And that's that everything from your teaching perspective as a coach, not the people management side of things, which is critically important, but from your teaching perspective as a coach, for me, is all about building great habits with your players. And so what I want to do and what I try to do, and this book reinforced it, was create great habits through deliberate, repetitive drills. I'm a big believer that by doing that, you allow your players to play without thinking. So structure actually creates creativity, because if you create great habits in your players, they can play and they don't have to think about, what does the coach want me to do here? They just react. Well, they don't react, they react according to your habits. And so I'm a big believer in that. I think thinking equals slow. And so this is really my biggest belief in the teaching side of coaching. Now, how did I get to this point? I was my first job in coaching. We didn't go back far enough on my bio. You notice that Chaser didn't mention anything about my playing career. I was a shitty college goalie. And that's the honest truth. I played at Ferris State, and I had the opportunity, because I was a shitty college goalie, I got into coaching right away. And so I finished my senior year, and the next year, now I'm one of the assistant coaches, and Bob Daniels was the head coach at Ferris, still is. What does he do? Well, he's got a shitty college goalie, so he puts him in charge of the goalies. So now I'm coaching the goalies. Well, I finished playing at the end of the kick save, stand-up kind of time. I mean, I had a half butterfly, but it was a lot of kick saves. And the young 2 goalies that we had were butterfly-type goalies. So I realized right away that first year, I couldn't help them get better. I didn't know how to help them. 1, because of the fact it was a different style. 2, I didn't know how to teach. And it was maddening to me and embarrassing. And I talk to these guys all the time. They're still good friends. One is Phil O'Sear. And Phil O'Sear actually works with USA Hockey now, oversees the goaltending mentorship program. And so Phil was a freshman. Between Phil's freshman and sophomore year, Phil went to see this guy, Brian DeCord, out of Boston. And he came back, and I didn't know it, but he came back and he was better at all the things I wanted him to be great at, but I didn't know how to teach it to him. And so I talked to Phil. Phil, what did you do? And Phil said, this is the guy I work with. So I called up Brian DeCord the next summer and said, Brian, can I come out and watch you teach? And he was gracious enough to allow that. And so I went out and I spent a week in Boston. He allowed me in the locker room after each session, and I learned how to become a coach. And I learned how to become a coach of goaltenders. And by becoming a coach of goaltenders, that has then given me the foundation for who I am as a coach today. Goaltenders I think more than any other position are willing to work at it on an individual basis before practice, after practice. That's kind of the culture that's been created. And I believe that goalies improve and maintain their habits by doing deliberate, repetitive drills over and over and over. And these are the lessons I learned as a goalie coach. So I'll give you some examples. When I went to Western Michigan as the head coach, we had a goaltender by the name of Jerry Kuhn. And Jerry was a senior. Jerry hadn't played the 3 years prior very much. He had been a backup most of the time. And when I got there, not a lot of people were high on Jerry, probably including myself. And Jerry had 2 issues for me. One, he was out of shape, but that was easy. And to Jerry's credit, he bought into it and he got in way better shape. 2, he wasn't very good technically. And so, and I'll give you an example of that. Players coming down to shoot on Jerry, they'd shoot to this on the ice on this right side. Jerry, he would go down on this left knee. He'd reach out with his right leg. He wouldn't get stick on puck. The puck would lie there. He'd get up on this front leg. And as a result, all this open ice was there. Goals are being scored on those second shots. That's not good enough in today's goaltending. So all we did was we just started working real simple drill until he mastered that. So Bill Ranford, when I was at Miami, had given me a drill to work with one of our goalies there, and it was just put the pucks at the top of the circle, shoot on the ice, tell them exactly where you're shooting the puck, shoot on the ice, have them get stick on puck, and then have them get up on the outside leg like we wanted him to. You can debate whether you're supposed to. Like we wanted him to, move to the rebound. So for about 2 weeks we did that, and as those weeks went along, next thing you know, he did it all the time in practice. Then he did it in a game. He was better at it without thinking about it because we created that habit. So then the next step, and this might sound simple, but it's awesome to watch guys get better. The next step, same idea, shots taken. Now he's still on the ice, and now we're going to work on that recovery. He stays down on the ice, and the rebound goes that direction, and he pushes over, and he makes a second save simulating a rebound chance. And next thing you know, he masters that. And it was step by step by step to watch him get better at these things. When you see that firsthand, that is a light bulb in your head, and that's the way you should coach. It's had an impact. Now, the other thing that you see, I believe, is that you're either training people to do it right, or you're training people to do it wrong. And it's your responsibility as the coach. I think it's easy to bitch about players. It is. I hear it all the time. I heard it from the time I started coaching. I always remember thinking, you guys not remember yourselves as players? I'm sure the coaches were bitching lots about you. I know they were about me for sure. It's easy to bitch. You're responsible for how you train your players. So you have to either train them right or you train them wrong. What do I mean by that? I'll give it to you first in goaltending. If there isn't a person in here that probably doesn't want, I would say everybody in here wants their goalies to set their feet before stopping a shot. So when they move from point A to point B, they want their feet set, stop the shot in games. If that's what you want in a game, that's what you better do every single drill, every single time you do a drill. So what happens all the time, invariably, is you have your shooter ready. You say, wait for him to get set. The guy starts to get about right here, guy or girl, and the shooter shoots, and his feet aren't set. If you train your goalies to play without setting their feet, they're going to play without setting their feet. Simple as that. Give you another example. We're going to do a drill, and coaches like to design fancy drills, and it's going to be shot here, and a shot here, and then a shot here. So I'm going to come up, I'm going to make this save here. And now the second shot's coming from here, but the rebound goes that way. If you don't stop the drill right there as a coach, you're training your player to do it wrong. 100%. No time in a game, if the rebound goes that way, do you want your player to go this way? So now if you apply that to your team, and I think it's critical, every drill, every small game, every station, you must be creating great habits. If you want your players to stop in front of the net in games, when shots are taken and they're driving the net, then you better make sure that you make them stop in front of the net in practice. You better design the drill so that they don't just wheel right off the net and go get a second puck. And if you do that, no problem. But don't get mad at them for not stopping in front of the net in the game. If you want your players in a game, when they are receiving a pass and they fumble it and it goes right back there, if you don't want them to do a big loop after they mess up that pass, then make them stop and get that same puck and have a one puck rule in practice. So in practice, what happens when we mess up, we just go and we pick up another puck and we keep rolling. That's what you're training your guys to do in a game. If you don't want your players to take penalties, hooking, holding, those types of preventable penalties in a game, then when you play small games with your players, if they take a hooking penalty, you got to break the habit. How do you break the habit? Immediate consequence. Call a penalty on them, make them skate down to the other end and back. It's not to embarrass them at all. I've done this with my junior players, my college players, American League players, and NHL players. And all you're doing is getting the message across. I'm not trying to embarrass you 1 ounce. All we're doing is changing your habit. Because if you hook all the time in practice, you're going to hook in the game 100%. So, from that philosophy that it's about creating great habits, how did individual development leading to your team's success become important to me? The two guys on the screen here had a big impact on this, okay? And I'll give you, both of them was when I was coaching junior, the head coach of the Indiana Ice. And the guy on your left is Yuri Fisher. So Yuri Fisher is the player development, in charge of player development with the Detroit Red Wings. After a game when I was coaching in Indiana, we went out to dinner with the opposing staff, which happened to be the Green Bay Gamblers and Cooper's staff. And so we went out to dinner after, and Yuri had been down watching Nick Jensen, one of Detroit's draft picks. And so we're having dinner and probably having a couple beers, and Yuri says to me, again, I'd been in college 10 years as an assistant. Yuri says to me, and Yuri's great, he makes me think all the time, but he can be controversial. He says, I don't think colleges practice enough on player development. All I heard was, I don't think colleges practice enough. Like, that's all I heard, and I was like, no way, that's all colleges do is practice, we don't play enough games, that's all we do is practice, so on and so forth. And he kept kind of arguing with me, and he started giving me some examples of club hockey in Europe and things like that. And I probably never let it die, and I argued with him the rest of the night. And then I woke up the next morning, and I said, boy, he might have a point. He might have a point. I'll fast forward that real quick. I interviewed Mark Crawford this summer, who spent the last few years in Zurich. Mark said to me, it's an absolute must in Europe that they have a second session where they work on individual development. So that goes back to Yuri's claim. Okay? So that always stuck in my head when I talked to Yuri. Later in my time in Indy, during my second year as the head coach in Indy, I was applying for the job at Western Michigan. And Bernie Saunders, who you see pictured here, was a great player at Western Michigan, played in the NHL a bit, one of their real big alums. Unfortunately, Bernie's brother, John, just passed away, so real sad deal there. But Bernie, I had coached Bernie's son, John, at Miami. So I had a relationship with him. So when you're applying for a job, you're trying to find every angle, and he was influential in the decision making. So I called Bernie, I said, Bernie, this is my, he said to me, what's your plan to win? I said, this is my plan to win, and we kind of went through it, and this is how we're going to win and whatnot. And Bernie said to me, Jeff, and I'll never forget this, he said, Jeff, the number one thing you need to do to win in Western Michigan is develop your players. He said, you are not going to get the same caliber of player coming in the front door from a recruiting standpoint that a lot of the big name competitors you're competing against. So you better do a better job than them at developing your players. You better develop your players at a greater rate than they do in order for you to have success. And I can tell you that hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought he was dead right. I think the number one way to improve your team, and this isn't I don't mean improve your team from 1 year to 3 years from now. I mean to improve your team from September to May. The number one way to do it, by far and away, is the development of your own players. By far, not even close. I can teach a system. I can get all of us in here, not me. We all can get players to play on the same page, which is a system, to play on the same page in a couple weeks. Like, that part of it's not that difficult to get them to play on the same page. There is no secret system that's going to magically make you win. So once you get them to play on the same page, whatever your system is, once you get them to play at that same page, there's no higher ceiling than that. So how do you push the ceiling up? You push the ceiling up by helping your players get better. That's how you push the ceiling up. I've said this lots publicly. The best chance for the Detroit Red Wings to maintain our success and further our success is by the development of our players internally. That's the best chance. Within our fan base, and I think there's some here, within our fan base, lots of people want us to make trades and trade for this top defenseman and trade for this top center and trade. It's not realistic in today's NHL. You don't get those types of players in free agency. You don't get those types of players through trades. Nobody gives them up. You don't get them unless you have assets in which you're trading the exact same type of player. So the best way to improve is to help your players get better. That's the best way for us to have success. 100% convinced of that. So once you have this thought process that this is what's important to you, the rest of this talk will be about how do you get that done. One is you got to make sure that your players have the right mentality, that they have the right mentality in their approach. I'm going to play this video here. This is Bobby Kelsey, who was the head coach at Wisconsin. She actually got fired, so I'm not sure if that's the appropriate video, but I thought it was a great message. Oh, I'm sorry.
But that comes with practice. I'm sure she didn't wake up one morning and say, oh, just want to be a good shooter today. You got to get your butt in the gym. You know, Steph Curry showed you that. I saw him in high school. He looked like a 2-year-old out there. But the boy could shoot. And so what did he do? He kept shooting. So if people think they're going to get it on the pillowcase, it's not going to happen. You can't nap your way to being a great shooter and Facebooking and all these things that teenagers do. You need to put the phones down, stop FaceTiming, stop tweeting, and get your butt in the gym. And it don't have to be an hour, 2 hours, 20 minutes every day. That's what Nicole does. 10 minutes after practice every day. That's it. It's no magic formula. There's no secret potions you rub on your hands. Get your butt in the gym and practice. Period. End of story. And you can shoot like that too.
Okay, so it's a pretty simple message, but it's one that actually Ken Holland showed to our guys at development camp this year in the summer with our young prospects. Because as simple of a message as it is, it's extremely true. And in the world of specialty coaches, personal trainers, stick handling coaches, all those things, what's forgotten sometimes is that the number one ingredient to improvement is work. Do I want you to work smart? Absolutely. We want to work as smart as possible. I'll talk about that in a second. But part of work smart is work. You have to do the work. And it's not just going to practice and working hard. It's what do you do before practice in a applied method, in a deliberate method to get better at a specific skill. When Tyrone Willingham was the head coach at Notre Dame, he said something I've always used this. Great athletes learn to work past boredom. So I'm a golfer. Not a great one, but I'm a golfer. I love golf. I'll even get to the point now when I'm waiting for my kids in their golf lessons to hit putts, and I'll practice my putting. But you know what I never do? I never hit 100 straight 3-foot putts before I leave the green. That's what Phil Mickelson does. That's why he's what he is as a golfer and I am what I am. Because he's willing to work past boredom. I want to go play. That's way more fun. Sometimes you have to get that mentality, especially as kids get older and especially at my level, they got to understand that. As an assistant coach in Detroit, I had the opportunity to coach Thomas Holmstrom in his last season in the NHL. Now, I think some of the guys would agree with this. If you put 10 NHLers in a men's league game, 9 of them, and Thomas was one of them, 9 of them 100% would stand out like a sore thumb. I'm not sure Homer would have. Not big, didn't skate great. He's got a straight stick. They used to call him Chop Chop as he chopped the puck in half a little bit. That's what his teammates said. But what Thomas did was said, how am I going to be better than every other player at one thing? So he became maybe the best net front guy in the history of the game. 2 things he did. 3 things. Screened the goalie, retrieved pucks, and tipped pucks better than anybody. Now, he had a great guy in Lindstrom shooting at him and all that. I saw it. Why? So when I got there, I didn't know Thomas from anything. His last year in the league, his minutes are starting to diminish. He's not playing as much on the power play. But you know what he still did every day after practice? Every single practice, every single pregame skate, he tipped pucks. 200 at least. Every single time. If I went off the ice and he wasn't done tipping pucks, he'd go chase me and get me back on the ice. Mentality is important in order for individual development. It's a critical part. That leads me to the next part of this, which is this is an article from a book that I actually read, Talent is Overrated. James Clear put this excerpt of it. It's about Jerry Rice. And I think for me, this slide is a challenge to us as coaches to make sure that when we're working with our individuals, we're trying to figure out how to help them best. We're not just doing drills that we've done. We're not just doing drills that I saw this summer at the level 5. We're trying to say, how can this individual, or how can these 10 individuals, how can we really make them better? What drills can we do to really make them better? Jerry Rice, when he came in the league, he wasn't overly fast. And no matter how hard he worked, he was only going to improve on that by this much. He couldn't have been the best receiver maybe to ever play the game by getting this much faster. So what did he do? Him and his coaches, they found other ways. He became unreal at his precise route running. He'd run trails in the summer so that he could move on a dime without signaling that he was going to move. He did more strength training at that time than other receivers did, so he could out-muscle them and out-jump people. He did way more endurance training than most speed athletes do, so that in the 4th quarter, he was as good as he was in the 1st quarter. An example of that, every player runs a route. So he'd run his route, he'd catch the ball. The other receivers would catch it, and then they'd jog back into line. He'd catch it and sprint to the end of the end zone every time and sprint back to the end of the line every time. That's what he did. It's our job as coaches to make sure, and this is going to be a challenge to my coaches, to make sure that we are designing drills to actually help our people. Not that we're comfortable with, but to actually help our people. It's on our shoulders to help our people get better. Okay. The other thing that had a huge impact on me on how do you structure individual development into a practice? How do you structure that? I had the opportunity to go, when I was coaching in Indy, to go to the Indianapolis Colts training camp. It was the last day of their training camp. I'm going to tell you a little story about it first, but it had a huge impact on how I structure practice, and I'll get back to that. So my athletic trainer's brother was Bill Polian, the GM at the time, right-hand man. So we got a chance to go to training camp, and Peyton Manning was still there, and the Colts were real good. And so now at this training camp, it was like Anderson University or something. It was a small college, and there was stands behind us here, and there was stands on the other side that were a little bit smaller, and the fans were out because it was the last day. It was the Fan Fest, and the mascot was there, and the mascot was shooting the T-shirts into the crowd. Nothing makes people go more wild than getting T-shirts shot at them. It's unreal. So T-shirts are being shot, and the whole thing's going on. And now it's kind of towards the end of practice. I'm going to go through what happened in practice in a second. Now it's towards the end of practice. And now the mascot's made his way to the other side, and he's shooting the T-shirts in there. And now by this point, they're into some 11-on-11 stuff. I think it was red zone offense. And Peyton Manning's getting ready to hike the ball. And the mascot fires one over the field, fires a T-shirt over the field into this crowd. And he fires it up over there. And right then, Peyton takes it. Boom, incomplete pass. Well, I'm standing right next to Bill Polian's right-hand man who's in charge of running the camp. So right away, Peyton turns and starts walking to us. And I'm like, no way. And he's walking to us, walking on. I'm like, no way. What are you going to do about that mascot? Was as he's come to us. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's unreal. And so next thing you know, my guy comes over and has a little word with the mascot. And I kind of laughed it off. I thought Peyton was joking, and he wasn't even close to joking. And we get a ride to our car later that night, and Bill Polian had left already to go back to Indy to get ready for the camp to go there. The guy that gave us a ride back to the car said if Bill Polian would have been there, that mascot would have got fired. And I was like, this is unbelievable. So the lesson in that has nothing to do with my talk. Don't be a mascot, I guess. Be Peyton Manning. What I saw that day I thought was awesome. This isn't the same day, but it'll give you an idea for those that haven't been to an NFL camp or haven't watched a lot of football practice. Okay, so I was going to ask the crowd, what did you guys see? And then I remembered that second clip and thought I better not ask any questions I don't know the answers to. So I'll give you an idea. This is when I watched that, and that's a pump-up video, whatever. That shows exactly what they do at their practices. And when I watched that, this is what I saw. In the first two red boxes on the outside, the preparation that led to the organization of the practice was unreal. I think I've always prided myself on being a pretty prepared and organized person. But when I saw that, I said to myself, okay, we got to do a better job. It was awesome. Each coach, and I'll talk about this in a second, is with their own players, their own position. They're not running to the head coach saying, okay, what do you want me to work on again here? They're using the whole field. The whole field's being used properly. The coaches, the equipment is in the right spots. Everybody knows what they're doing, and the timing sheet's down to the second. Now, I don't do the timing sheet to the second. But it certainly spurred me to say, we got to make sure we're mega organized in order to have an effective practice. I know for sure it's way harder for youth coaches, and the less support you have, than as you get up and you have more support. But it's also harder when you're in my position. We're going to have about 5 assistant coaches that help us to make sure they're all on the same page. I've sat in practices for my son's squirt team, and I used to help coach it when we were in Grand Rapids, and the coaches were great, awesome, but we wouldn't know what we were doing until we walked on that ice. He might say, okay, you're going to do this, or when we're on the ice, he might direct us. You're going to go here, and you're going to go, and it was my son's last year, his year he was playing squirts. And the problem is, I know it's hard, but challenge yourselves to make sure that you're prepared and that your coaches that are going to be on the ice with you are as prepared as possible. Write out a little something after work at night the night before. Take a picture of it, send it. Spend 5 minutes before to say, okay, this is exactly what we're doing. Boom, boom, boom. When we do this, we got to move the nets. When we run our stations, the nets are here, here, and here. This is where the pucks are going to be. This is what you're teaching. This is what you're teaching. This is what you're teaching. Make sure we have one voice. Challenge yourselves to do that. It is amazing how much more effective practice becomes. The other thing that I thought, and this really gets into the individual development for team success, was the part-to-whole mentality. And I'm going to outline that here in a second and give you a real view of what I would do with our hockey team. But the part-to-whole teaching. So, again, with the football team, with the Colts, quarterbacks, coach working with the quarterback. So if Peyton Manning can work on his footwork, why can't all our players continue to maintain their great habits? I don't care what level you're at. You're looking at the minute detail, that's what keeps you on top. The wide receivers are working with the wide receivers coach. Running backs working the running backs coach, so on. That's how they start practice every time. Then you might work in pairs. So now the running back might work with the lineman, and you might work on blocking schemes. The quarterback's working routes with the receivers. Then it builds from that to what my next point is, static versus chaos. So they don't go right into 11-on-11 football. They probably then go to 11-on-0, things like that. If you want to teach new skills, if you want to refresh your skills and make sure that your players can play without thinking, teach static first, then teach chaos. You can't learn new things in chaos situations. You can enhance what you've already mastered and learn the fluidity of it to reacting properly, but you can't learn new things. So how does that apply to a Detroit Red Wings practice in 16-17? So this is 60-minute practice. It won't be exactly like this, but for the idea. This is the way that I ran practice at Western Michigan, and we did before practice. The NHL culture is to do skill work after practice. The only problem with that is it's not unreal organized, and it's not real deliberate. So when I went to Western Michigan from the advice of, as I spoke about earlier, Bernie Saunders, we would do 15 to 20 minutes of skill work, then go into practice. I did that in Grand Rapids when I first got there. I didn't do that last year. And I was real disappointed in myself at the end of the year that our individual players' habits, and we had improved enough, and our habits had slipped. So this is what we're going to do. 15 minutes to start practice. We've got our coaches. Everybody knows what they're doing. The goalies are already warmed up because they've already been on with the goalie coach. 15 minutes of that. Then we're going to work 15 minutes park to hole drills. So what are those? I'll show you an example. Instead of working the entire breakout, you have one defenseman and two forwards. And they're breaking out of this corner and you're working on a couple key things. And the same thing out of this corner. It's a flow drill that works on a component of the breakout. 15 minutes of static type routing drills. So you'll see a drill here in a second where you're teaching D-zone. 5 guys go in, 2 coaches are in there, they stop in their right spots, so you've trained them to stop in the right spots, they get the puck, they break out, you might even tell them how to break out, they go, they give it to the coach, dumps in the other corner, do the same thing. And then you build from there, you build to chaos and small drills. We play tons of small games, small games, not small drills. We play tons of small games, guys love them. But you want to do it at the appropriate time. And you want to do it after you've taught those systems because there's habits within those small games that you can teach that are outstanding. Okay, so here's just, I'll walk through these practices. Now this was filmed at development camp, and so we had 2 sheets of ice and multiple players, so it wouldn't look exactly, but I wanted to give you the idea of the drills. So right now all we've done here is, this is a breakout, neutral zone transition entry day. That's what we're working on. So I'm going to build this from splits between our forwards and our D, and then we'll build it into the practice. So here we're just working the wall play of it, where the player's going to come in, he's going to handle the puck on the wall, he's going to have some pressure. This one they're trying to chip it out, gets messed up a little bit, but you get the idea. This wasn't done totally right, but it gives you the idea how the structure of the practice goes. You want your centers to be underneath in the breakouts. So work on it. Work on it in a smaller area so it's not 5-on-0 and you're not stopping the whole practice. So here we're working on the centers getting below the winger, little pressure, pop to the middle. Another one of those, same idea, pop to the middle. The other thing we'll work on is passing to the D in front of the net. So here the winger gets the puck, the other forward's going to simulate a D in front of the net, boom, get up, and go. So you're working the individual components of the breakout. Now we're going to go to entries. So we start with 2 men, and then we're going to build the 3. So 2 men try to shoot it off the pads with a guy driving the middle. 2 men try to shoot it off the pads. Then we'll build it. This is we call it off his ass. So now he's going to cut off his ass to try to gain center space. Then it's 3 men. And again, these drills are in your packets, but you get the idea of the forward skills that we're trying to work on that then we'll build into practice. At the same time, at the other end, you have your D going. And as the D are doing their stuff, here it's at a different rink just because we had that access and the numbers. But you can see we're just working on shoulder check, pop it to the middle of the ice to the support guy. It's real important for the way we play. We want to be able to hit the middle of the ice. Boom, boom, into the support guy. Again, now this time, shoulder check, he sees he's supporting as a winger, gives it to him there. So it's done in a way more controlled environment. and you can stop it, you can teach. At the same time that these 4 guys are going, 4 guys should be shooting the puck in the neutral zone as a station-based approach. Now we're working on, there's heavy pressure. So our keys are boards or net. So on that heavy pressure by the coach, where are the players at is the communication there. So we can make sure we do a great job supporting each other. One more of those. And the next thing you'll see is we'll be working on goaltending touches. So when the goalies touch, we want our we're going to work D to D. So D to D, work the D to D options off that. I actually wanted to work on them with the player facing the glass and facing heavy pressure, but again, we weren't on the ice for these. It was at development camp. Here's the goalie touch. So we're training, and how you train your players might be totally different. But the idea of breaking the skill and the habit down within any kind of systematic play that you play, the skill and the habit are what's important, and the growth of the player are what's important. As we move through these, we're going to move into some neutral zone drills. Just, again, making sure our habits are great. Boom, boom, and up. Next one's just going to be a D to the wide side. There'll be one more here that'll be D hinge. And as we go through this, so now we've built it individually. Now we're going to move into part to whole drills and static type drills. Okay, so now this is a drill we'll do. It's 5 versus token 2 pressure. And we're working on that center underneath and what I call a push the pace guy by the winger who's trying to be an above option when the guy's the puck. So you have a below option with the center, an above option with the winger, and the D in the wide side. So we go from those individual skill development stuff to this drill. Do this twice so you can see it and get a good feel for it. We don't want to rim the puck a lot, but when we do, we want to be able to put ourselves in the right positions to maintain possession of the puck. Now it's a direct pass, same idea, but direct pass. So that when you see us play, and I'm on the bench and I see a situation where we got to put the puck on the wall and the guy's pinching and it gets to the center underneath and he kicks it to the D, that happened from practice. And if they don't do it, it's on my shoulders because we didn't train them properly. Work and effort, that's on the player's shoulders. Training them properly is on the coach's shoulders. Have that mentality. Okay, here's that drill I was talking about. It's one coach pressuring. We're going to work on cutting that coach off, which is basically interfering, and then the D has to find which player's open. Puck comes in, D's got to find which player's open. Come down for a shot. So again, it's just the component of the breakout. I think you see one more here. Okay, now we have a part to a whole drill where it's, again, starts out somewhat static. The defenders are going to be passive or token in this drill. All the players are against the wall here. It starts with a rim puck, center underneath, winger option above. Next D is going to step up, and now we start to move into more chaos situations, into a 3-on-2 coming back the other way. I think you see one more here. Boom, boom. So we've worked all those breakout options, worked them into 3-on-2s. Now we're going to go to the neutral zone, make sure we have the neutral zone down. Here's the 3-on-2, not unreal execution, but you get the idea. So here's the neutral zone. Just simple D to the post. Same thing's going on at the other side. D to the center. So that in games it happens without thinking. And now to the far D, they're going to hinge and go to the wide side. Okay. D to the center. Here's one more with a hinge and go to the wide side. Okay, now it's going to be some support in the neutral zone with the D into 2-on-1s. So the strong side D, the original strong side D is going to take the 2-on-1. So the coach gives it to the D, D to D, player moves to support. We always want to move to support the puck into a 2-on-1. This is what we call neutral zone times 2. So now we've built it up, and now this is 2 5-on-2s in a row. They're going to go D to D to the post, the strong side winger. Attack 5 versus 2. Puck's going to come out. They're going to go D to the wide side. Attack 5 versus 2. So again, this all started with the individual development, and then you can build it into a practice where the theme stays current as you move through the practice. The last part of this that we'll do, I'll just jump to the last part. The last part of this that we'll do is just a 3-on-3 neutral zone game. So now it's chaos in a small game. Nets are moved up to tops of the circles. Coaches are on this board, the near boards here with pucks. Play 3-on-3. If the puck goes out of play, gets scored, or the goalie freezes, right away it's a transition to the next play, to the other team. Just to work on transitioning off those turnovers. Here's a transition to the blue. They'll come through 3-on-3, get back above defensively, create space offensively. Puck goes right away. Let's transition the puck the other way and try to create so that we want to be a high transition team in those situations. Okay, the next day, and I'll try to get through this quickly, the next day is O-zone, D-zone. So we're going to work on, so we're starting with our forwards. You got one half of the ice. The D have the other half. So you'll see some of the forwards here doing one-timers, some of the forwards in the middle of the ice doing one-timers, working different one-time scoring things. So in the middle of the ice that you don't see, we're working certain, and whatever you want it to be that's going to make your individual players better. That's the critical thing. Here we're working, and again, at the same time, we're going to have shooters shooting in the middle, and we're just working on snapping that puck through defenders. Forehand snap to the other side. Backhand snap to the other side. Working on that little area, making sure we do a good job in those tight areas. Also notice trying to emphasize certain things for us, trying to emphasize not crossing over in these areas, using your edges to work in those tight areas. So if you want to be good in the O-zone, you've got to be able to create space for yourself and create offensive situations. Now we just moved into a thing. Again, this was a long, long day, so he had all the guys going at the same time, but really there should be half the guys shooting in the neutral zone, and that station-based approach, that's what we'll do as we start our year, including training camp. Just working different drills. This is the homer drill. Retrieval, back to the net front, learn to play like a bad goalie. Retrieval, back to the net front, learn to play like a bad goalie. Okay, now we're going to go to the D. So as we go to the D, we're going to start with some skating stuff. Skating one more drill here. This is actually pretty. So now we're teaching the D side, the D zone side for the wingers. So we have all our forwards, and we're going to teach the habit of D zone coverage. So for us, it's real important that, I think I just lost it here, guys, sorry. For us, it's real important in these situations, in the D side of things, that we stop on the puck and that we're cutting the top off. So as you see here, and I'll play it, they'll cut the top off and just work in the habit of the D side of things. The next group's going to sprint. They're going to go to the hash marks, sprint, and then their job's to cut the top off. Sprint back to the hash marks, so you're working the component of the D zone and the little habits within that to make sure you're good at it. Now we'll move through the D and just working edges in a small area. Making sure, just like the quarterback working his footwork, that our D's footwork's great. Now we're going to put them in a 2-on-1 situation, and our key here was contest the pass and puck, contest the shot, don't give up the back door. Okay, this one here is a real working for a specific part of the D zone. Offensive player in the corner with the puck. Offensive player in the slot area. Defender on the guy. Defender net front. So the two D working together. So as that defender, our rule of thumb is as that forward carries the puck behind the net, if you're not inside his shoulder as the defenseman, if you're not inside his shoulder, you report to that strong side post. The net front guy should report to the weak side post, make sure nothing goes through the middle, and then he can play out from there. Okay, now one other real big component for us in our D zone is boxing out early. So as the puck gets shipped to the top, we're working on two things here. We're working on walking the line as a D-man. We're working on boxing out low play. So that guy's got to box him out. The only thing with this, I would have blown it once this guy gained center because the guy did such a good job boxing out. And then just a little bit of angling in tight areas. Angling in tight areas. Okay, I'll just move through these. This is just 4 corners now. So now we've moved the whole team into 4 corners. And the key to this, you put one puck in play, whoever gets it's on offense, the other player's trying to defend. The offensive player's trying to carry the puck between the gloves. I did this with the squirt team all the time. The defender's trying to make sure he doesn't allow that player to carry it through the gloves with great body position, stick, and trying to steal the puck, and then he goes on offense. So again, just building that part to whole mentality. Okay, I'm going to skip over this one. I want to show you. Here is what I talked about in terms of routing. So now it's 5 guys coming in versus a coach. Lots of times we'd have 2 coaches. Get to their spots, break the puck out, create that habit, give it to the coach, send it to the other side. Same thing. Great job in the habit. Go down 5 versus 2. And you'll see the next drill from there is a drill that becomes chaos, becomes 5 versus 5. It's 2 versus 2, then 5 versus 5. Starts with a quick 2 versus 2. And then it's going to travel down to the other end, 5 versus 5. And the players are going to play it out live. And now you're into D-zone coverage. Oh, sorry guys. So that's the approach in terms of making sure we build that from an individual development standpoint into a whole. I want to talk about one other thing before I'm done here, and that's just the development of your players handling pressure. And the reason I wanted to talk about this was 2 reasons. Let me play this clip first, and then I'll go through it.
Now you missed this shot. You're not just letting your team down, you're letting me down too. Remember, it's not worth playing.
If you can't win.
That's right. Okay, sir, let's go.
Let's go, son! High! High!
So in a high-pressure situation, when the stakes are high, and everybody knows the stakes are high, what do you do to help your players be better? You're not just letting the team down, you're letting me down. He could have added, you're letting the 400 trillion sperms that weren't as lucky as you down too. I used to play golf with a buddy of mine, Seth Apper, coaches RPI. We'd be partners. And all the time I'd have this 5-foot putt for the hole. And invariably, every time before I went to hit it, hey Blash, this is a big putt, man, this is a big putt. I'm like, hey, no shit, it's a big putt. Like, thanks, Tips, I didn't need any more. So how do you help your players handle pressure? I just wanted to include this to end. I've read a real good book here lately just calling Performing Under Pressure. I think it's a great book. For me personally, it's a great book to help our players. I think it's a great book as a parent in terms of how to help people. In high-pressure situations when the stakes are high, everybody knows the stakes are high. You don't need to build those stakes up. The idea of the fact that players rise above their play in pressure situations has been proven from study after study in every phase of business, sports, everything to be false. The best players that handle pressure play close to their normal ability. They don't play above it. Most people play way below their normal ability in high-pressure situations. This is just one of the studies that they talked about, the Roy Hobbs myth. That's from the Natural. The NBA study, normal 76%, under pressure it's 69%. But there's study after study. I've always been a huge believer, if you can get your players to play in those big championship games, if they can play up to their normal ability, you're way ahead of the other team. Because most times the other team plays below it. My advice, and I get this call all the time, coaching the club national championship, coaching the Pee Wee tournament, wherever. What do you say to your players? Everybody wants to give a Herb Brooks speech. I'm sure, and that worked for sure. But in my approach has always been, focus on the details of the process that the players have to execute in order to win. Don't allow them to hope to win. I always tell them that. Let's not hope to win. Let's go play to win. Do the things it's going to take to win, not hope to win. So I think that's a big part of individual development. I can't, as I walk off here, might have time for a couple questions. As I walk off here, I can't employ you enough, though, to make sure that you spend as much time making your own players better. That'll make your teams way better. So I appreciate the time. Is there any questions? You want to do any questions, Tabes? Any questions? Yeah.
What do you think the single biggest thing is that you can do to create a good team environment?
Get good people. No, I'm not kidding. Get good now. Sometimes you have more control over that than others. Weed out bad people and get good people. That's, to me, is the number one. When I was at Miami, we were, my first couple years at Miami, we recruited good people. I shouldn't say that, but they weren't winners, in my opinion. They weren't workers. They didn't have any inner drive, and we kept bitching as coaches about how they didn't work hard enough. Well, we're the ones that recruited them. So then we said, okay, forget that. The number one thing we're going to recruit is character. That's the number one thing. They still got to be talented, and we defined what character was: inner drive, competitiveness, selflessness. And we made that a point that that's what we're going to recruit. That's how we're going to win. Yes?
During the course of a season, of course, self-confidence for players is important to play at their best. What does the coaching staff focus in order to maintain self-confidence for the team?
Yeah, it's an interesting, and actually, this book has been good at that in terms of helping give those. Confidence is earned, for sure. I've always said true confidence comes from knowing that you've prepared yourself for success and that you have the ability to have success. Most of the people believe they have the ability to have success. You got to make sure that you convince them that we've prepared to have that type of success. I think as a coaching staff, communication's critical. Something that I think we can do a better job of this year even is making sure that we communicate exactly what we want them to be great at, and use measurables to show them an individual, one measurable, not 10, one measurable for that individual player that player can judge his game on more than anything else. And I think as that player has success in that one area, that builds that confidence. So even as you go through scoring, if he's a scorer and he's not scoring, if his measurable is won battles and he's consistently winning battles, he can gain confidence from that. Any others? One more? I talked about this last time I was here. Yuri Fisher, okay, let me go one way. Yuri Fisher's one thing to me, the one thing he said to me, this doesn't answer your question, but like a politician. Except they don't admit it. Okay, the one thing he said to me was, master one thing first and move on to the next. And then within that, what's the primary skill? I don't know if there's one, but I'll give you for sure. In the NHL today, skating's paramount, for sure. But I'd also say hockey intelligence. I love hockey intelligence. So those are the two things, if I think you look at a player too and you say, especially offensively, how can they separate themselves? To me, there's three ways you can separate yourselves offensively: speed, strength, or absolute tenacity. And so if you're in a business where you're recruiting, I don't know who's in here, or you're scouting players, if it's an offensive player and he can't do any of those things at your level, he's probably not going to be offensive. All right, I appreciate the time here. I hope you enjoy the rest of the session.